Welcome back to the final episode of Season 3 of Multifamily Unpacked. In today's episode, we talk with Kylee Lambert, Senior Vice President at MAA and President of Open Arms. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation about the Open Arms Foundation and the role it plays as MAA's corporate charity. We talk about Open Arms, MAA, and the impact that it has on everyday employees in the organization to have a fulfilling and motivating mission. I hope you enjoy this conversation. All right, Kylee, thank you so much for joining us today on this Multifamily Unpacked episode. So to get things started, could you tell us a little bit about your background and specifically how did you make your way into the world of multifamily?
Yeah, I'd love to. And thanks for having me, Tyler. I'm excited to be here and talk to you this morning. I've been in multifamily for about 25 years, and currently I'm with MAA. I joined them through the Colonial merger back in 2014. And I have a story similar to everyone else's. I was leasing an apartment and they had a help wanted sign. And I said, tell me a little bit about that. Haven't looked back. I've been doing it for a very long time and, really enjoy it.
Amazing. Yeah. And for those of us who have been in the space for a while, we know Mid-America, know Colonial, but not as many folks know Open Arms. And today for this special episode, we want to talk about a charity that I know is near and dear to the heart of folks at MAA. So could you give us kind of an overview of what is the Open Arms charity and what role does it play within the broader MAA mission?
Yeah, I'd love to. And you mentioned just now, the heart of MAA. We call Open Arms the heart of MAA. It is our corporate charity. It was started about 30 years ago when we went public. And I wasn't around then, but I have to believe, being in Memphis, that St. Jude played a big part of why we went in that direction. But we provide housing to families in medical crisis. A lot of times when families have a need to get treatment and relocate their entire family, they don't have the means or additional funds to do so. We come together and provide that and take that off their plate, not just the housing, but the utilities as well. And so having that resource at our fingertips with as much housing as we have, and Tyler, our footprint in the Sun Belt. So, we take advantage of that, and it's pretty exciting. It's pretty special.
Yeah, that is really special. And I think one of the things that I love about Open Arms is, to your point, started 30 years ago. 30 years ago, MAA was not the nation's largest owner of apartments, but today you are. Mm-hmm. And so as the largest owner of apartments in the country with the Open Arms mission, how do you identify, so you mentioned obviously that you have housing and you're helping individuals that are in medical distress. Is it certain communities that are near to hospitals? Is it, is there a certain amount of time that the units are available to be, opened up as support for this? I'm curious because you have one of the largest footprints, and not the largest footprint, given it's in the Sun Belt, but it's a lot of density. I'm here in Tampa, Florida, and you have a lot of amazing properties and great locations. So how is it identified, or is it a little bit broader than that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And we typically have we have 54 units currently right now. And it's typically that we set up units where it is close to treatment centers and hospitals where it makes sense. And we work really close with hospitals, and we have waiting lists for people who need our resources. And we have a lot of referrals. We have a lot of people that know about Open Arms just from having a friend that works for MAA, or having known someone that was a recipient of Open Arms. We try to stretch units throughout the company. So we'll have units all the way on the East Coast and in Atlanta and Virginia, parts of Virginia and Florida where you are, Dallas where I am, and then of course, Memphis, St. Jude. We have several units within our Memphis footprint as well. So that's typically how we determine where the demand is where we'll open a new unit.
Amazing. Yeah. One of the questions I have, thinking, understanding where we're at, and then we'll talk about, where Open Arms goes forward. One of the interactions I've had is an opportunity. You all do several charity golf events and other fundraising initiatives. And so how have those played a role in the culture at MAA and getting all the employees exposed to, because you mentioned there's 54 units, and that's a huge impact. I think about the stories and the families that impacts. But one of the things that I've enjoyed is that even just as a vendor to MAA, I've had opportunities to participate. So I'm curious over the years how that's evolved and what opportunities you give your team members to get involved in whether it's on the fundraising side or other participation.
Yeah, so we have lots of ways that our employees get involved. One is to sit on a committee, and one of the committees we have is fundraising. It's our largest committee because over really the past 5-6 years, our committee, our fundraising has gone from $400,000 or $500,000 a year to over $1 million. And to your point, our biggest fundraisers are really these golf tournaments, and we have several already scheduled for 25. One in Florida, one in Atlanta, and then we have a 10th annual golf tournament in Dallas, and all of those raise between $150,000 to $200,000 in just that one event, and 100% of those funds go back into Open Arms. And so it does allow our employees the opportunity to volunteer at those events, to bring friends and family to those events, to just be a part of something special. So they can join a committee, they can participate in all of our fundraising activities and events throughout the years. And then we also have what we call Open Arms October, which is a company-wide fundraising month where hundreds of smaller fundraisers and events happen on property and throughout the company. It's a little bit of a competition through each state where we try to raise as much money as we can. And so outside of just raising money for Open Arms for that month, it's also a vessel to share what Open Arms is with our vendors and residents and families, and get more involvement and get people more informed of Open Arms. So lots of ways our associates can participate and be more involved.
Amazing. And we'll make sure to include the information about those upcoming events in the show notes. I know Funnel has found them to be not only a great time to spend with the MAA team, but also just a great cause, of course. And so you mentioned, obviously, this amazing growth in the fundraising. I think one of the things that's really important to us at Funnel and with our small charity is that it's small now, but our growth as a business is growing our impact as well. And so It's clear to see, you mentioned, starting off in the hundreds of thousands, now north of $1 million in fundraising you're able to do. I'm curious, when you think about current initiatives and current impact, it probably goes far beyond what you've already mentioned, but just to double click on it. So you're providing homes, and we know that in the locations where you are, rent in and of itself and access to a home is incredibly expensive. You mentioned utilities. I'm curious that, these fundraising initiatives you do. Last year for our charity episode, we had the CEO of Entryway on, and they talked about there's a lot that goes into getting somebody into an apartment. And then they've got to think about, can they get furniture? Can they help that person get on their feet? So what are some of the other initiatives adjacent to access to an apartment and the utilities that fundraising enables, right? Because we'll include links for folks to donate. So I'm curious, that money is not only, we're getting rent available to these individuals, we're paying utilities. What about furniture? What other kind of resources are available to these individuals while they're getting cared for, but they're living at an MAA property?
Yeah, sure. They're fully furnished, every single one of them. So not just
Amazing.
A couch and a bed, but also anything you need in the kitchen to ensure that they can cook a meal. So all utensils and bakeware. And we typically, when they arrive, we'll stock their refrigerator as well. So that's not something they have to think about for a couple weeks. And we keep those apartments furnished. So we update them, 30 years is a long time. And so we want to make sure that they stay modern and fresh, and linens and towels. Typically we don't recycle those through different residents. So all of those expenses are different things that we have to think of when we're talking about what our fundraising goals are each year. And then, the timing is perfect to talk about this, but around the holidays, we typically take care of all of our Open Arms residents as well. So during Thanksgiving, we provide a meal. During Christmas, we provide gifts for the children in our homes, Easter baskets, outside of just thinking about housing, because they have so much going on, so much they're thinking about. We try to take a little bit off their plate, because I can't imagine being a parent and needing a unit to take care of my family so one of my children can get treatment. But on top of that, Christmas, how am I paying for presents? And so we really try to be intentional and thoughtful on, how our resources, how far they can reach. And that all depends on fundraising for the year.
Yeah. Oh, Kylee, that's amazing. And yeah, I hope that we can play some small role in helping to generate additional, because my heartstrings are being pulled on it. You talk about, imagine you're in that situation. It's your family member, your child who's needing care, and that little bit of help, how far that goes. So I'm curious, could you share any, whether it's anecdotal or some stories that you've personally experienced or that you've shared with the MAA team that kind of brings I understand the program now, but maybe just any sort of examples of, maybe it's certain cities or partners where you've had a lot of success, or individuals who have really seen the impact of Open Arms.
Yeah, being president of Open Arms, I get to read. We get letters, emails, handwritten letters, pictures. We get people that show up at our offices and just are so excited and thankful and want to tell their story. So I could talk about stories all day long from the years I've had involvement with Open Arms, but one comes to mind that's just it's pretty recent. It was last year. We had a gentleman reach out to us. His name is Michael, and he's in the military and stationed in Hawaii with him and his wife and 3 kids, and their 4-year-old son was diagnosed with an aggressive brain cancer. And for anyone, I think that would be incredibly tough. But for Michael and his family, they had 3 or 4 days to get to the treatment facility, which happened to be St. Jude. And so they had to make a lot of decisions really quickly. And one of the things was looking for an apartment temporarily so that they could get to Memphis and get their son into treatment. And someone mentioned Open Arms. And so we were able to get him here, him and his son, and into a unit. They were there 6 to 8 months, I believe. And he's in remission now. And I just feel like they did not have to worry. So the mom and the other 2 children stayed in Hawaii where they were in school and able to keep their home there and not have to worry about that part here. It's hard. It's hard to put any type of value of what that is to someone, because to me, I feel like it's invaluable, and it's a small role, but I think it's pretty special, and I think it goes a long way in people's lives. And so that's just one story. There's thousands like that, unfortunately. And so, I think we are just proud that we're able to provide a resource that just really is at our fingertips, that we have an abundance of. So makes a lot of sense.
Well, and Kylee, I agree. When we think about our little charity home and the tens of thousands of dollars we impact, we know we're not changing the world, but we are for 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people that we get to impact, right? And that story you just shared, clearly, that's a huge impact for Michael and anyone who's going through those trying times. For us at Funnel, the P in pink stands for pro-social, which means that we want everybody to win. And I'm curious, MAA is an organization that's won, right? It's an organization that's been a very successful public REIT. In addition to being president of Open Arms, you're a head of operations for this large, successful organization. I'm just curious from your point of view, anything you would share, being a leader in an organization that is mission-based and has a charity and gives back, any advice you'd give to other people we have a lot of professionals who listen to this, multifamily professionals in particular, who some are part of organizations where they get to feel fulfilled. Others need to look outside of their organization to do that. So just any advice you would give to somebody maybe earlier in their career about the importance of charitable work and having a cause above and beyond being, doing your day job.
Yeah. I think the advice I would give is it goes beyond the people we're serving. I think it defines what our culture is. And I think that's so important to our associates for long-term growth. People want to work with an organization that has a strong culture, that gives back, that believes in people helping people. And one of the things when MAA and Colonial, the discussion of the merger first happened, and I looked into MAA, and the one thing that stood out was Open Arms. And then when you start meeting people on the leadership team and talking about Open Arms with associates and property managers, and it connects everyone, and everyone feels like they're part of something. And that's pretty unique and pretty special. And I've worked for companies before that give back, like you were mentioning, in some way or another outside of a internal charity, and I think that's great as well. But there's something to be said about just uniting a large group of people for one cause. That's just super special, and I think goes a long way. And like I mentioned, I think our culture would not be what it is today without Open Arms.
Amazing. I love that. Yeah, I get to meet every new employee at Funnel, and it's shocking to me how often they mention the charitable initiatives that we do, right? And so to your point, yeah, when there's wonderful people at MAA we get to work with, all the way from Eric and Warren and Joe and Brad, and you can tell their eyes light up when they talk about Open Arms, right? And how that correlates with the brand for them. So let's look into the future. So in your role leading this organization, both you think about the growth of MAA and from the operations hat, and then Open Arms in particular, what are some of the future initiatives, and you think about growing the organization, growing its impact? I love what you said, people helping people. Are there certain challenges that you're really focused on, or is it more so leaning into what's working and trying to make sure that lives on into this next generation of MAA?
Right now, we're just leaning into what's working. Our goal is really to open, 2 to 5 more units over the next couple of years. So keeping fundraising strong and ensuring that, our teams stay involved and people learn more about open arms and want to be involved in it. And then really leveraging different types of technology to help us and support us through these initiatives. And we're looking to partner with some companies to manage some of our fundraising and help us with answering phone calls and scheduling wait lists and so forth. So outside of just some technical things like that, I think it's just, keeping to the basics of what we know, and that's providing homes. And that's really going to continue to be our goal as we go into the future for the next couple of years. But having a wait list in several cities, we really want to be able to provide more homes to people. So we definitely have a goal to open more.
Yeah, that's a great goal when you know that, as you said, sadly, there are more stories to be told and there's plenty of demand for your service. So I think that's a wonderful goal to be able to more efficiently work through that backlog. Well, Kylee, I've really enjoyed this. We like to end our interviews with what we call a speed round. So if it's all right, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. So first one, you're obviously a highly educated, successful individual. Are there certain books or podcasts that you go to educate yourself, or maybe just a good book or podcast you'd recommend to our audience?
Secretly, I love true crime podcasts. So if I have to pick something, that's what I'm picking. But recently, I did listen to the Highest Level podcast with Evan Burke. Have you heard of it?
I have not. I'm writing it down.
Okay. Well, it's cool because it's a sports podcast. But what I love about it is it's not much different than our industry when it talks a whole about culture and teams and leadership. And I just like to keep that grounded and the correlation between different industries. And at the end of the day, regardless of what your day to day looks like, kind of the bigger picture and the end result really impacts our associates through culture and leadership. And so it's a great podcast. I highly recommend it.
Amazing. I'm going to check that one out. Have you heard the true crime podcast Cold?
Yes.
Did you listen to that one? Okay.
I have.
That one, that's my only, so we'll recommend that. That's my only true crime one.
I might have to send you some offline.
Okay.
You need to catch up.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Next one. So we've got a billboard outside of the funnel office here. If we handed the rights to design that billboard over to Kylee, what's an opinion that you feel so strong about? And this could be multifamily. This could just be a pet peeve. It could be open arms. We're going to give you the billboard and say, all right, Kylee, what are we putting up there? What is it?
Probably, if you keep doing the same things, you'll get the same results. I think we have to evolve. We have to be open to, especially in this environment, we have to be open to new ideas and, different directions. And when I was talking about technology, I mean, that changes so fast, right? I think you cannot continue to do the same thing, whether it's in business or in your personal life or fitness. I just think if you're looking for something different or new or better, you have to go out there and take it.
Love that.
That's what I would do.
That's a great one. That reminds me of one of my favorite books, Mindset. And then I think it sounds like you have a growth mindset, Kylee. That change is a constant and it's a good thing. All right, last one. So our tagline here at Funnel is renter-centric. It means a lot of things to us, but I've known the MAA team for many years. And again, we've been very fortunate to get to work with some amazing team members. To you, or through the MAA lens or through the Open Arms lens, when you hear the phrase renter-centric, what does it mean to you?
Customer focused, customer first, renter first. I think we have to always be willing to look through the lens of our customers, because without their satisfaction, and I think we're as strong of a company as our most satisfied customer. And so we have to be uncomfortable sometimes, and it might not be something as a company we're willing to think about or look at, but I think for the better of the customer, we need to. And so that's what comes to mind with that phrase.
Love it. Thank you. Yeah, and I think that to tie that all together, I can only imagine that the renters who get exposed to the events you do on site or through your website are proud to live in an MMA property knowing what Open Arms does and the impact that it makes. So, Kylee, thank you so much. No, I know, I hear it, I see it. And I think that to your point about technology, would love to find ways to continue to make folks aware of that, because the customer comes first and customers want to be a part of something that is bigger than just a transaction. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Well, we appreciate you, and thank you for your partnership with MAA and Open Arms.
Awesome, Kylee. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Tyler.